Hello, it's the 6th of October and we're having a look at a few late flowering plants. And we're going to start off with this salvia. It's called Salvia Royal Bumble. And it's similar to Salvia Hot Lips, which is the red one that's in the beginning of the season has red and white, and then as the season advances it nearly goes all white. And I don't know why it does that, nobody seems to know. But anyway, a few years ago a landscaper told me that this was one of the best plants, not just the best salvias, one of the best plants in the garden. And I've planted this about a year ago. It's flowered from about the end of June and is still in flower on the 6th of October. I was reading an article on salvias and the chap said this time of the year take salvia cuttings, these type of salvias, overwinter them as cuttings, take cuttings now, take cuttings of non-flowering wood. Problem here is virtually every single shoot has either a flower or a flower bud on it. But if you were taking cuttings, this is what I would do. There's your cutting. There's your cutting. And if it has a flower bud on it, nip it off. There's your cutting. Don't bother about this carry on at knives and all. You don't need it. Instead of getting 100, say instead of getting 80% rooting, you might get 79.5%. But that's cuttings. Bang them into peat and sand, mix your peat and sand, bit of a lid over it, transparent lid over it, or even from now on you don't even need a lid, it just needs to be in a north facing situation so it doesn't get too much sun, gives it a chance to root. Okay, that's Salvia Royal Bumble. As we're here, we're just testing this camera out to see if it's any good. I just happened to notice this. It's called elephant's ears. It's Bergenia, and it's one called Ballawley. It was bred in Dublin. They're very, very good evergreen plants for shade and sun, but particularly shade. If it is dry, it has to be dry. The only problem with them is like a lot of evergreen perennials, unlike evergreen shrubs, they've no facility for getting rid of their old leaves. They just sort of stay on and look untidy, so you have to every now and then go in and give them a bit of a tidy up. Well, it's a super plant. We're in the right spot. Of course we have the lovely black-eyed Susan. You can't go wrong with that. That's Goldsturm, Rudbeckia Goldsturm, and there's a slightly different variety. That's been flowering for 3 months. It runs a little bit, never gives any trouble. It's a stalwart of the garden. Here is Microphylla. Don't know what it is, which one it is, but once again it doesn't give any trouble, comes up every year. But it's one of the older fashioned ones that tends to get congested. But I want to show you this Microphylla over here. Oh, look at those Rodgersia, yeah? Now before we look at that, this article on salvias that I read last week, he mentioned this one because it has a lovely, sort of a very vibrant, reddy, sort of a magenta colour. But I don't think it has the flower power of the Royal Bumble. But it is good. Of course we have the Salvia Amistad, but I'm not so sure how hardy that is in Ireland in a hard winter. I'm not so sure about that plant, but it is good. And here we have Aster Mönch. The problem with Aster Mönch is it's a star performer in the garden, absolute star performer, but it never looks well in a pot, so it's hard enough to sell. In other words, if it was in a talent competition, it would never win the talent competition, but if it got onto the stage, it would be brilliant, but it would never get that chance because it just always looks a bit weedy and a bit weak in a pot. But when it gets into the ground, it's a different matter. It flowers longer than normal asters, and it doesn't get mildew, and it doesn't run. It always keeps real tidy. So Aster Mönch. And we're going to go, let me see, we're going to go around and look at the pampas grass, but first, it's Helianthus, Lemon Queen, a very old plant, very much used plant, but one of the best late flowering perennials. Doesn't need a stake, never gives any trouble, maybe once every 10 years, lift it, split it, put bits back again. And we have us a little problem here We did a little bit of work over there, and we took down the fence for time, and like with most work, it always drags on longer than you think, and I think a hare's got in. Now we put the fence back, but I think he's still getting in, because when the thing about the hares in a garden like this, they've plenty to eat in the countryside. They come here for their little nice bits, for their bits of dessert, and they're eating white phlox, and they're starting on my fuchsia. So what we've done is we've strengthened the fence, brought the fence up higher, and if that doesn't work, we'll get a camera and we'll find out exactly where he's coming in. We'll get one of these motion cameras, but with a bit of luck, we sorted the problem out. I kind of like hares, even though they are a nuisance. On the 6th of October, Verbascum chaixii in flower. That's a seedling. All of Verbascum chaixii are seedlings. That's one that's was cut back and it's reflowered. There's a volunteer seedling there. There's another one, and another one over there. We'd probably have to be ruthless and remove them. But I didn't come to talk about that. I came to talk about Viburnum Summer Snowflake on the 6th of October. That's been flowering since late May. Now it has a really strong flowering, and then it sort of has intermittent here and there, but that's a super Viburnum Summer Snowflake if you have the space. And going into lovely autumn colour as well. And now we go around here to Pampas. And this is a variety called Pumila. Now the thing about Pampas is always go for a name variety, never a seedling, because with a seedling, sometimes seedlings, they don't flower till very late. And if they don't flower till mid-October, it's too late. The season's closing in and they will never flower. So you always get a name variety. And some of the seedlings can be a bit rough. You never know. It's like buying a pig in a poke. Always go for a name variety. If you want a really tall one, go for one called Sunningdale Silver. But Pumila is hard to beat. It's just nicely held. Not too tall. Just like me. And what we do every 2 or 3 years, we cut it to the ground, because once again it's evergreen and it has no facility for getting rid of its old foliage. So you cut the whole thing back to the ground around May, about once every 4 or 5 years, and that's all you do. It has to be in an open situation. It's no good if it's crowded with other plants. It needs a bit of openness, both because that's what it likes and that's what it looks best at. It looks best when it's airy and wavy. And we look at going to look at a second Cortaderia around here. But first, look at that. That's a red hot poker called Kniphofia caulescens, and it looked like it wasn't going to flower, and I went away for a few days last month and we came back and it was in flower. That's one of the, it looks like has a leaf like a yucca. Most normal red hot pokers, the foliage is very, very, at the best, it's rough and it's dingy, but this foliage in this one always looks good. This is one I'd recommend, Kniphofia caulescens. Look at that, the Alstroemeria is still in flower. A little bit of deadheading still. Very tall Aconitum. Very upright, I don't know what it is. We're going to have to take that Cotinus Grace back. It has graced itself too much with its presence, so it needs to be taken back a bit. Rudbeckia, amazing as usual. What can you say about that? Geranium and fall card. Look at loads of new buds. That's been flowering since June. What can I say? But we finish off with this Pampas. This is one called Mini Pampas I got from Holland. Now, it's okay. It's just okay. See the way it's not, flowers are not coming above the foliage. It's a little bit dumpy, but it's still okay. But if you have the choice, go for the Pumila. Now, I think it's just perfect there though at the same time. And just as a matter of interest, just with this pandemic and all this and people locked down and all, the government said that you're actually allowed to talk to your plants. And if you talk to your plants, it's sort of good therapy. And the men in white coats will not take you away. So you can say, hello, how are you, Roberto? How are things? It's a bit colder here, a bit wetter here than in Argentina, but I hope you're having a good time. Now that's perfectly all right to say that. Now, if the plants start talking back to you, that's a different matter. Anyway, that's John Lord in our own little world, away from all what's going on outside.